There's a reason that Muzzy's been around for eons. I mean, my dad shot Muzzies. I shot 5 deer with the same Easton MJ.
And then like hemlocks, there's branches everywhere, one little window. Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another podcast on bows, bros, and bucks. This is episode number 11. Today we have an awesome guest. We're going to be talking everything archery, and we'll turn the time over to him.
Hey everybody, my name is Bill Hood, from Georgia, live in Texas. Wanted to come on the podcast today, talk a little bit about archery, as you mentioned earlier. I've been a bow hunter for pretty much all of my life. Obviously started with a rifle when I was a little too young for the bow thing, but have had the opportunity to kill plenty of deer and kind of got into the arrow building side of things mainly. And just kind of with a big hype recently around archery equipment and all the different variations of arrow styles and things, I really wanted to try to put, knowledge out there that I've had with experience through hunting and target archery as well, just to kind of build a brand, build a company, and hopefully help people out. Just getting kind of on our feet now, but I love nothing more than talking arrows and just helping people.
And what is your specific setup? Do you just try to do what people want, or do you try to lead them in a specific direction towards like the heavy arrow setup, or what?
Yep. Some folks, they kind of come in with a little bit more knowledge about their arrow setup. So they may have an opinion, I like a heavier arrow. I'm shooting a closer distance, things like that. On my website, I just have basically kind of your hunting situation you can write a few comments on and your bow specs. And I try to design off of that. As I mentioned, it seems like there's a big hype around one certain type of arrow being the best. It may be that super heavy arrow with a giant fixed blade in it. That's a great arrow, in its own right. But some people are wanting to touch a little bit further ranges or a different type of animal, not just a whitetail, or they may want to hunt elk at this range or X range. So we try to really custom tailor our designs to the specific hunter. And along with that, is price range. I don't have my own arrow brands. I'm not sponsored by anybody at this point. So if somebody says, hey, I'd really like a custom arrow, but I don't have, $300 to spend on a dozen arrows, we can definitely factor that in as well. I just do kind of a two-phase approach where I design them based off the specs that you give me, and I'll send you the design back. You can ask questions or comments. Some folks that don't know much about archery, they're normally like, yeah, let's run with it. So I try to explain pretty well why I did what I did. And then folks that are, have a little bit more knowledge in the space will ask me, could we probably bring my speed in a different range or a little more mass, like I mentioned earlier. So it is 100% custom tailored. And again, there's not a fixed setting. Once I give you the design, people can kind of switch it around how they'd like.
And from your experience, we can talk about this and then we can get into the arrows, but I think it's a conversation that people will have for the next 50 years, and it's been the conversation for probably the last 10 is fixed or mechanical. And my opinion personally and what I've seen is I would much rather 100% believe in my equipment, and I don't want any risk of the blades not opening. I've seen ballistic gel tests. I've seen also my own tests where if I hit something in a fixed blade, it's gone right through the shoulder blade and right into the heart, my first deer. And then I've seen other deer where I've hit them back in double lunged them, but it's been a little bit higher than I wanted, and it still got complete pass through. So I don't know what your opinions are on that, but I definitely have my fixed opinions.
Good. Absolutely. And that's important. I'm going to give you a very political answer here, and I don't want it to seem that way. But I've heard someone say it before, and I truly believe it. So just a little backstory before I answer. I kind of was into the urban hunting thing, which is really blown up in popularity now with Seek One and others, doing the suburban hunting. But I would kill deer while I was in college, just for meat. I mean, I would knock down 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 deer a season for grandmothers in my hometown that were tired of their plants getting eaten or whatever. And I said, man, I got to eat through college. I'm broke. So I'd go just waylay deer, and I had to do it all with a bow, and that's when my testing and stuff really started. So it started more with broadheads. Like I love to try different broadheads, see how they worked, and I had great success with mechanicals. I shot Rage forever. And then it seemed like there was a big switch over to the fixed blade side. People were really preaching them. And I said, man, I'd like to see what this is all about. I've heard terrible things about fixed heads planing, and you just don't get the big holes with the blood spill. And so I tried fixed blades. This year was actually my first year shooting fixed heads. I was a Rage guy through and through, and I still believe they're great broadheads. But the penetration that I saw with the fixed blades this year was amazing. I think I'm sold on them. I shot the Q80 Exodus. Super
Yeah.
durable head. I mean, they test them through like steel plates and stuff. And it's a pretty small diameter. You're not going to see a whole lot of planing like you would with like a big single bevel, or something like that. Um, but I, the political answer that I'll give you is I've heard someone say it before, and I think whatever you are most comfortable with and what you truly believe when you're at full draw on that buck that you've been chasing all season, the last thing you want in your mind is, man, did I make the right broadhead choice? Or once you let that arrow fly and it hits, and maybe you don't get the penetration you want or something, you don't want to sit up there and think, man, what if? So you need something that you are 100% confident in. Um, I will say, with bigger whitetails, things like that, a big diameter mechanical. I've seen things like you're talking about. I know that I was not able to reuse mechanicals after I shot them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the big thing for me is I'd pull it out and those blades would be chipped up and they'd be kind of bent, from the torque of the arrow going in. And it's like, man, if it looks like this on the way out, like how good is it halfway through? But those Exodus or Stingers, I've shot those. They would come through and it looked like I just pulled them out of the pack, and they'd be stuck in the dirt, hitting rocks and everything else. So that was kind of
Yeah.
where my fixed blade preference started. But I have a,
Yeah.
a
I
pack
I've
of
I've
Rage
done
that I
mostly
got on sale.
muzzies.
What's that?
Oh, sorry, continue.
Oh, I was just saying I got a pack of hypodermics that I picked up on sale, some of the no collars. I'll shoot them at some days and stuff this year. I mean, great blood trails. Um, I will say I don't think I had the blood trails that I did with mechanicals with the fixed blades, and that can be a function of, as I said, I'm shooting the Exodus. They're a little bit smaller diameter. They're 3 blades. When you hit low in the body cavity, you're always going to have a great blood trail, and I saw that with mechanicals. But I would hit high, uh, or any broadhead you shoot low in the body cavity, you'll have great blood. But I would shoot higher up with mechanicals occasionally, and I still think I saw better blood trails. Um, I know that there's some thought that your entry and exit wounds don't have anything to do with it. I don't necessarily believe that school of thought. But ultimately, like your granddad or your dad's going to tell you, if you hit them where you're supposed to, you're going to kill them.
Yeah, and that's something that I've seen is like I don't particularly care if there's a huge blood trail because for me, all the deer that I shot five with a bow in 2020 and 3 bucks, so one in New Hampshire, and then it's a 2 buck state in Massachusetts up here. But you can't
Mm-hmm.
go around shooting more than like one doe.
Right.
There's like very limited tags up here just because there's not as many deer. So there's not like
For sure.
huge doe management days like Seek One does or like any of that stuff. Like you can't,
Yeah.
that would blow out the population. There's some people go a whole season here and don't see a deer. I mean, like hunting,
That's
like
crazy.
it can be real tough sometimes. But
Right.
I mean, this arrow I shot 3 deer with, 2 bucks in a doe with, and I totally forgot that maybe I should probably check it, see if it's cracked or anything. But I ended up shooting the same deer all with that one arrow, and then I think I used the same broadhead for two of them, and then I replaced it for the third deer.
That's
So
awesome.
that muzzy went through both of them. I didn't resharpen them on a grindstone or anything like special. Like it was perfect for me, and all of them except for my last one, which obviously I know now I should have changed the arrow and stuff because it snapped. Um,
Absolutely.
but on the last one, all before that I had seen them die. And he went 250 yards, but all the other ones went max like 80, and I saw them all fall.
Oh, it's
So
great.
that's how I've seen it, but I also know that like with mechanicals, you 100% like get a better blood trail. Obviously, it's a bigger entry or exit wound because there is like the sharpness. And I think a lot of times I've heard people bring this up is they're like, oh, well, if it's stuck in the deer, then there's sharp blades like running around inside the cavity tearing it up, but they're dull as soon as they hit those ribs or the cavity. So I've heard. So,
Right.
or the shoulder blade. So it's
Yep.
interesting.
And I will say another point on the fix heads is I was hunting like a 2 acre tract pretty much in Georgia. It was tiny. And it was a bunch of does that I needed to take out for a homeowner. And a bonus buck came. It was the middle of the rut, November. He came in, he was fighting mad. He was thick bodied. I mean, big southern whitetail in Georgia. And he came down the hill at me and he postured to fight another buck. And I waited and waited and I never could get the right shot. Well, he was slipping out of my life, quartering at me, coming kind of towards me, but it was going to be a rough shot. And I knew where I needed to put it. It's a shot I've made before. And I was going to have to put it on that front ball of the shoulder for it to come out. You know, I always shoot for my exit. For it to come out behind the opposite shoulder, I could catch the heart and everything. And when I got to full draw, I was so thankful that I had that Exodus on because I knew I was going to have to bust some bone to get through what I needed to get through. And man, it smoked him. I mean, it zipped him. It was that Exodus was 6 inches in the dirt on the other side. And I do remember like just being at full draw thinking, I can do this with this broadhead. So
Yeah,
that's a
I
big
want to try out like an or a annihilator or something like that because
one.
those like single blades, I think those are great setups for like my first introduction of ground hunting this year when I was in Idaho. Like
Mm-hmm.
for that type of hunting where I'm bow hunting from the ground, that I would 100% want to do. And I had a frontal shot that I could have taken, and I absolutely did not want to take it because I was using my buddy's bow. So I was using like a $1,000 Bowtech bow that I had never like I'd shot it once at the range, and I'm
Right.
using like Walmart broadheads from Muzzy that I was like, I don't know. And he's got like thin arrow setups. I'm like, I'm gonna sling something at this buck that I stalked, and he didn't turn broadside, and he was like steam was coming out of his mouth, and I'm like, I just can't get myself to do it because I might have to go through a twig or sagebrush too. But he was just postured right up, coming right at me because he thought it was another buck trying to get to his doe.
That's it.
But I mean, I really regret not having a proper heavy arrow. Like I'll say the hunting public setup, that's like the what I qualify it as is like a heavy annihilator or whatever they use, like the thick piece of like $100 broadheads
Oh
that
yeah.
they'll use for multiple deer. I think it's an annihilator. I could be wrong. I don't remember the name of it.
I can't remember. I know that they did those episodes with like Ranch Fairy and stuff, and he's big on like
Yeah,
the single bevels or a single piece head. And I think Iron Will makes a great head.
that's I think Iron Will is the one. Yeah.
Yeah, that may be it. They make a good head. You know, I've never personally used them, so I can't say, but all of my friends that have used them, man, they love them. I just, it's hard for me to put $100 on the end of an arrow. That's just a financial thing for me. But man, they're made
Same.
out of the best of the best. So if you have the means, you know, maybe you can do it. But like you're talking about a Muzzy, there's a reason that Muzzy's been around for eons. I mean, my dad shot Muzzies. I mean, everybody I know has shot Muzzies, things like that. I mean, those are tried and true tested broadheads. And if you put it where you're supposed to, man, you're going to have plenty of success. I think you're kind of splitting hairs when it comes to that point. A lot of things I say to folks when they are asking for arrow designs is arrow can't fix like bad form. It can't fix bad shots. No matter what broadhead you have on, if you don't hit them where you're supposed to, man, it's going to be a tough job to get done. So I think I would rather save the $100 on a broadhead and hit the range a little more, watch a few YouTube videos, understand deer anatomy a little bit more, and wait on those good shots. And when you're braving it out on public land or whatever, or you know, a state where you don't have as many deer, you got to kind of be ready for any shot opportunity because sometimes you've got to take shots that aren't 100% broadside or things like that. So I think durability matters. I think I'm more about durability rather than broadhead style, and that's
Yeah.
just a function of seeing those mechanicals so torn up when they come out of deer.
Yeah, and there's a couple like factors. So like I shot one on my YouTube channel, and the buck up here that's on the mount, and that one he was coming to the side. He was trying to scent check because I grunted with my mouth. I was like,
That's
and he
awesome.
heard it. So he came downwind of the scrape after he hit it and was raking the tree. He came downwind. I set up on the creek because I knew he didn't want to cross the creek. So he came around and I was like, crap. And I'm in like hemlocks. There's branches everywhere. And there's this one little window. So I go, meh. He doesn't stop. So I'm like, meh. And then he finally stops and he's kind of facing right here, and I'm up in the tree, and I shoot, and it goes right behind his shoulder, but then it goes downwards, and it hit him right in the penis. Like, and I'll be straight, like it went like right into his penis and balls, and the
That's a
broadhead
bad
was
day.
barely. Yeah, the broadhead when I found him, there was no blood trail, and this was in the snow. So if there's any specks of blood, I would be able to find it. I didn't
Right.
find the arrow. I didn't find any blood. And then I eventually found him just grid searching, and he only went like 200 yards, which is farther than I'm used to, but still, I was like, I'm glad he passed away fast. But the
Right.
broadhead was half in, and then he snapped off the other end somewhere. I never found the other half of it, but I have the arrow here, and I got all the way through, so I was like happy about the penetration, but it just got stuck up there in the bottom of the cavity and like on his on his on his goods. But other than that, I was extremely happy, and I just probably should have replaced the arrow and the broadheads, but I was on a budget and
Yeah.
18 or no, I was 19, so I was like, yeah, whatever. So
Yeah.
it is what it
And
is.
like one of my favorite mottos is Gold Tip's little logo where it says flex it first, like for safety. Man, always inspect your arrows after any deer, any target miss, even in the middle of target shooting. Give it a flex, man, because it's a lot better for you to break it in your hands than to break it on a shot. Because carbon will splinter and explode, and it'll be an expensive and unfortunate trip to the hospital to get all that little carbon out of your arm. So safety is pretty important, especially. I shot just like a sidebar on kind of what you were talking about. Um, when I was doing again doe management for a lady in my hometown, I shot 5 deer with the same Easton FMJ, and it was my record. And then a doe, it finally broke on a doe. She flipped backwards and snapped it. But I like to just see durability, things like that, and that's part of the testing for me. It's like I've shot every brand. I've tried to kill them every different way, different ranges, different broadheads. So the testing is just so fun to me. And I love to see people who are excited about it. I think it's my engineering brain that's like, let me see how we can over engineer this. How can we add math and physics? And a lot of the buddies that I bow hunt with are engineers as well. So that's all we talk about. We call it getting in the rabbit hole, and we will over engineer, anything we can, especially arrows. And that's kind of where the name arrow nearing came from, is because that's what we consider it.
Yeah. I have an older bow. It's called a buckskin or whatever, a reflex. And
Mm-hmm.
it's an older bow that was like passed down to me. And that's like what I've grown up shooting because my parents like don't hunt or anything. So this
Right.
guy basically sold it to my dad, and my dad never ended up using it because he doesn't hunt. He's just a gun guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gave it to me, and I've used that ever since, and I shoot at like 60 or 70 pounds, and that bow's done amazing works. And there, I didn't even have like broadheads at first. I was using like Rage and other things, and I'm like, oh, I hate these, and I hate the little rubber things that I have to keep track of and all that crap, the O-rings. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a post on like the New Hampshire hunting page. I was like, does anyone have any broadheads I can buy? Like, blah blah blah. And one guy's like, I'll give you some for free. And I was like, what? So this guy, oh grab this guy, I still have the packaging to this day. So he sent me this box of these broadheads. Coolest guy ever. And I was like, Oh my gosh, he sent me these 5 muzzies, and I still have them to this day, and I still use them. And
So
that guy literally is the reason why, like, I was able to get those deer that year, and it just made me like so happy. And now I've experimented with other arrows, but if it weren't for that guy, I don't know if I would have used those broadheads. I don't know what would have happened. So that was a
yes,
pretty cool story, that how I got started.
and that's what I like. A big part of this, as I said, was like just trying to teach folks about archery. I think it's such a the hunting community, like we have got to stick together. There's a lot of, especially in the social media day and age. I mean, if you go in YouTube comments or Instagram comments, it's bickering and battling and telling you why you're wrong and all
Yep.
this. And that you see it again with arrow choices. Like that's just kind of a small piece of it. Man, support your hunters, support the guys around you. You never go into a pro shop and then just berate you and say, you need the heaviest arrow you can. You need this. You need this. You need, you don't need. They're just going to guide you and tell you, and you can bring up suggestions. To me, a true expert in any field offers suggestions and has a conversation with you. They don't preach. They don't say why it's the best, why their ideas are great. They don't belittle other ideas or other setups, and you'll see it. Um, People just preaching like, oh, you need to do this. This is the right way. This is the only way. If you're going to be, an adult, you need to do this. Like, man, some people, number one, can't afford these kind of things. I know that,
Yeah.
hell, I've seen people kill deer with the 80s bows, hand sharpened broadheads. I mean, Indians did it with sticks and stones. So
Yeah,
there are
there's a lot of
obviously,
ways to kill a deer, that's for sure. I don't Do you know who John Eberhard is?
I do, absolutely.
Yeah, so I've talked to John about it a lot, and he's like, everybody's got these fancy Matthews. They give me like free bows and send me all this stuff, and he's like, I like my old bow. Now I'm down to like 40-pound pull or something, and
That's
he's
it.
still killing like record freaking bucks. And I'm like, man, everybody talks about like I when I was in Idaho, I had a lot of buddies that are like more wealthy and grew up in like mule deer and elk hunting families. They're spending
Mm-hmm.
like $70 on their arrows minimum. They're spending all this money on their equipment, and then they end up not killing anything, or like they're like not the best hunters, and I just or don't even bow hunt. They just like shoot at targets, and I'm like, I'm not hating on you for that, but why waste the money if I can get it done with like my Walmart Easton arrows? Like it's just funny to me. But I also understand the difference between shooting ranges and mule deer. That's different because you're gonna be shooting a heck of a lot further than 20 to 40 yards in a tree stand. And
Absolutely.
then elk, you're going through a ginormous animal. So there's a lot of different factors. So that's why it's good not to judge, like you said.
And that's it. And I want it to be the best setup possible for anybody. I mean, accuracy is very important, consistency, especially in target archery. But I would venture to say that you could give, you know, anybody, Chris B, professional shooters like that, John Dudley, you could give them a Walmart bow and Walmart arrows, and they would outshoot me 10 times, with the best arrow that I could build with the most expensive bow. It all comes down to practice, and especially in hunting, because I know plenty of old guys that have hunted public land their whole life, and they manage to kill hammers year after year after year. And they shoot old equipment. They don't even use camo, and if they do, they got it, from Walmart. It's not a You can't buy big bucks unless, I mean, you're paying to hunt. But
Unless you're hunting a high fence, then you can.
that's it. That's it. And don't get me started on that, because then I really will blow up. So, but man,
No,
even
I
if it
won't,
is a high
especially
fence,
because you
back to
live in
what I,
Texas.
oh yeah, and back to what I was saying. Even if it is a high fence, man, at least they're hunting. At least they're out there trying to
Yeah.
trying to do right. Maybe different than how you and I do it, but got to support our hunters and things like that. If it's ethical and it's legal, man, you got to support them.
And that's like the raised hunting guys like went and did like a shed hunting video a couple days ago on like a high fence. I'm like, that's so cool. Like, who cares? Like, you're just having fun. Yeah, it's easier, but like that's awesome. If you had the experience to do that or the opportunity, totally would do that. Like, why not? Like, it's just shed
Yep,
hunting looking for antlers. Like, it's not the end of the world. And in the end, I think those things are great because any hunting is good hunting if it's within the legal laws. Like, it's making the industry survive. It's
that's
keeping
it.
people like you and me and other people in business. It's paying for tags. It's supporting the industry. but of course, social media and the news and other factors will go in to make it seem like we're bad people. And it's sad the hunting industry's changed, and we could talk about that a lot. But I've heard on other podcasts, like growing up in Pennsylvania, people have said like the teacher would be like, "Oh, I heard about that 10-point buck you shot. Congrats, Jimmy." Like in the middle of class, like that is just
Cool.
so cool to me. And it's kind of sad what's going on in the world now. But what is
Yep.
your preferred setup? I know that politically it's not the right for everyone. It's not perfect for everyone, but for you, what do you like to use?
What I'm using right now, I shoot a Bowtech. I shoot the SR6, the Realm. I love it. Um, as I said, bow is probably a little less important. They're all great. They're all pretty much neck and neck when it comes to performance this day and age. Arrows, I am a big Victory guy. I've shot them the last few years and have had nothing but great success. I love their components. That's probably the biggest piece for me. Well, second biggest. The biggest to me is the diameter. I like the ceramic coat they put on their arrows, the diameter. I think that it helps with the wind drift, and I really do think it has increased my penetration. I like their interchangeable components. They have components at different weights that you can pick, which a lot of arrow manufacturers are going that way now. But it used to be you get an arrow and you have an aluminum insert, and that's the aluminum insert that fits this arrow, and that's how we run it. Victory, you can pick your arrow and then you can pick your components. Do you want this much weight in the front? What do you want it to be, like a half out kind of system, which is what they run. Um, but
You want to
I like
explain for
that.
the viewers that aren't familiar what you mean by the components, so if they don't
Oh yeah,
understand how
sorry,
arrows are made. No, you're good.
absolutely. Um, on the component front, to me, the biggest piece of the component is your insert system. So that's kind of what your broadhead or your field point is going to screw into in the end of your arrow. Um, you can have a true insert. You can have a half out where part of the insert is inside the arrow, part of the insert is outside the arrow. You can run like a post with a sleeve where you have an insert on the inside and then a sleeve that just slides over the out of the arrow, outside of the arrow, to kind of give it some
Hmm.
strength. If anybody's ever blown an arrow up, you hit something hard, that um, shock will kind of break the end of the carbon. So the collars will kind of help in that front and help distribute that shock backwards, which is what I like. That's what Victory has. They also have half outs that they shoot too. Um, and that's what I like most about Victory. I feel like they have a lot of options, which there's other manufacturers that have great options. Easton, you're seeing it as well. They have some of their adjustable components on like their hit inserts and things like that. But as for me, it's Victory. I'm actually going to try some new fletchings this year. I'm going to run the tack veins. I've used some of the boning heats before. I like them. They're a little bit lower profile, but they're stiff. They're a good stiff material. And I think that's important because I don't want my vein to lay over like some of the softer veins do. Once you apply a little
Yeah.
torque, they'll kind of lay over. And another thing with a soft vein is you'll have vibrations, so you'll get a lot more noise. So we'll increase velocity, decrease that noise. So I think I'm going to run a tack vein this year. I'm still going to do a lot of experimenting through the summer. Boning Blazer, another great vein. You're going to see that on 90% of your arrows. They're great in pretty much every circumstance. They're good, high profile. You can shoot them with about any head. They're durable. You can find them anywhere. Any pro shop is going to have a handful of them. So, again, that's a great vein choice. But just for me, I'm going to run the tack veins this year, I think. And then
Awesome.
um, that's it. My head, I'm probably going to go back with the Exodus. You gotta throw what you know. I've enjoyed the performance I've seen, but again, I have some hypodermics. I may mix in some mechanicals just to get back to my old ways. But I think the Exodus is what I'm going to run. How about you? What are you thinking for the season?
That's a great question. I want to do something. I want to get a setup for like a heavy arrow, so like an Iron Will or a Exodus. I want to have that
Mhm.
set up, but then I also want to have just my normal Muzzy setup. So
Yep.
that's something that I'll need to talk to you about specs and my bow specifics and the draw and the length of the arrow. So I can talk to you about that another time
And
and stuff.
anybody
But
who's interested, I do all the design work for free. I can build them for you. You can have your pro shop build them, whatever. But I do the design just for free, just to give information to hunters at this point. So you can go on our website and you fill out the form, and I will send you a 3 or 4 page report on your build, why I picked what I picked, kind of explain some of the numbers that I'm giving you. That I use a software when I enter all your specs and things in, and then I start tweaking your arrow to try to get it to the perfect design that I think on an energy standpoint, speed, weight, everything for you. Then I'll send you a report with those numbers and explain kind of what those numbers mean and why they're probably best for you. But that's all. I do all of that stuff for free.
Do you do traditional archery like feather fletchings? Do you do crossbows or do you just stick to compound?
I just do compound for now. The traditional stuff is an art, probably more than a science. It's a little bit of both. Those
Yep.
guys are true arrow builders. I mean, they have to really take time and do everything perfect. I'm not in that space yet. Um, Crossbows, I think you have so much energy and stuff. It's pretty hard to optimize, especially the way that they're shooting nowadays. I mean, they're so fast and there's so much energy in this.
Crazy.
It's hard to optimize on perfect, you know.
Yeah,
So I think
it's hard to optimize on someone you can shoot 80 yards in 2 seconds.
that's it. That's it. So I like the compound space, and it's something I understand. Uh, I don't want to try to step out into a realm that I don't. I don't want to be, ignorant to it. So I kind of stick to what I know and what I think I have the most room to play with, which is compounds.
And I respect that. That's something that you want to stick to something that you know and that you can actually give benefit and advice to customers. So I really respect that. Do you
That's
want to shout out before we end your website and your social media, and then I'll put it in the link in the description?
Yeah, let's do it. So it's arrowneering.com, ARROWNEERING.com. Just like engineering, but with arrow in the front. Our Instagram is arrowneering underscore customs. Just kind of getting the Instagram kicked off, trying to take a few more orders. We've done, multiple designs and builds for local people and things like that, but we really wanted to try to expand it. So, yeah, anybody who wants a design, man, we'll get it out to you and explain it to you a little bit better. And if you hear anything on social media and you have questions and you say, is this best or whatnot, man, I love having these conversations. My phone number is on my website. So call me, email me, whatever you want to do. I love doing this right here. So
Awesome. And do you have a real location or do you just do it at your house if people are local?
I'm just out of my house now. I can ship if I need to. So
Okay.
I'm building everything here in Texas right now.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, hopefully we can get you some business and get some more designs so you can get that
Yeah,
practice and all that stuff growing on your social media.
absolutely, man. And I appreciate it. And wish the best of luck to you. I've really enjoyed the few episodes that I've listened to. That's why I kind of hit you up on Instagram. I was like, man, this is a fun podcast. Somebody who's passionate, not selling anything. So that's fun.
Yeah, that's definitely don't have a lot of sponsors or anything like that. I just like to stick basic to what I got and what I love, and I don't care if I get big or not. I'm just doing what I love, and I think that's why we get in the hunting industry. It's not for money because there's no money to be made realistically, but it's not the stock market, that's for sure.
Absolutely. But it's fun.
It is. I agree. Well, thank you so much for your time, Bill. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Kyle. And we'll be talking to you here pretty soon. Good luck. Shoot straight. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yes, sir. Rage in the cage.
Yes, sir. Bye.
Thanks so much for watching Bows, Bros, and Bucks. Have a great rest of your day.
Dark white shoes while I pick them apart. I'm from a city that really don't play, and I'm still getting on the V